Human beings have always been fascinated and horrified by the darkness that hides inside some of us. From the earliest days of history, we've told stories of monsters, demons, and evil spirits. But the truth is, the most terrifying monsters are not born of myth or legend. They are human. These men, and sometimes women, walk among us. They laugh. They smile. They shake hands and make small talk. But beneath the surface, they harbor urges so violent and so unthinkable that their crimes defy logic. Tonight, we're going to explore the stories of some of the most infamous serial killers in history. The ones who became symbols of fear. The ones who turned murder into ritual. The ones who shaped nightmares. This is not entertainment. These are not fairy tales. These are the true accounts of real people who brought horror into the world. Welcome to the greatest serial killers ever. Sit back, turn off the lights, and listen closely if you dare. Jack the Ripper, the Shadow of Whitechapel. London, 1888. The city was booming during the late Victorian era, but not every corner of London was filled with wealth and elegance. In the district of Whitechapel, poverty, crime, and desperation were daily struggles. The streets were crowded with beggars, drunks, and prostitutes, people trying to survive one night at a time. And it was here, in the foggy streets, under the glow of gas lamps, that the figure we know today as Jack the Ripper appeared. Between August and November of 1888, at least 5 women were brutally murdered. Their names were Marion Nichols, Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride, Catherine Eddowes, and Mary Jane Kelly. History calls them the Canonical Five, but many believe Jack may have claimed even more victims. The brutality of the crime shocked Victorian society. These were not simple murders. Each victim was not only killed but mutilated in ways so grotesque that even hardened police officers were shaken. Some were disemboweled. Some had organs removed. The killer's knowledge of anatomy suggested he might have been a doctor or a butcher. And then came the letters. The police began receiving messages, supposedly from the killer himself. One was signed Jack the Ripper, and the name stuck. Another letter arrived with a piece of human kidney inside, allegedly from one of the victims. Whether these letters were truly from the murderer or cruel hoaxes, no one knows for certain. The murders caused mass panic. London newspapers filled their pages with speculation, theories, and wild accusations. The public was obsessed, and fear gripped the streets at night. Who was Jack the Ripper? Some believed he was a surgeon. Others suggested he was a member of royalty. Over 130 years later, no one has ever been identified with certainty. But perhaps that's what makes Jack the Ripper so chilling. He wasn't caught. He wasn't punished. He simply vanished back into the fog. And to this day, his shadow lingers over Whitechapel. The story of Jack the Ripper reminds us of something terrifying. Sometimes evil is never brought to justice. Sometimes the killer walks away. H. Holmes, The Murder Castle. America in the late 1800s was a land of invention, progress, and opportunity. But while the Chicago World's Fair of 1893 promised light, science, and the future, it also did something far darker. Beneath the excitement of the fair, in the shadows of Chicago, stood a building that became infamous in true crime history. Its architect was Dr. Henry Howard Holmes, better known today as H. Holmes. Holmes was charming, well-dressed, and educated. He studied medicine, but beneath his polished exterior lurked a predator. Using his wealth and status, Holmes constructed a 3-story building that locals would later call the Murder Castle. The building was a maze of horrors: windowless rooms, trapdoors, hidden staircases, secret passageways, and chambers fitted with gas lines. Guests could check in, but many never checked out. Holmes would lure victims, often young women who came to Chicago seeking work during the World's Fair. Once inside, they were locked into airtight rooms, gassed, and killed. Some victims were dissected. Others were incinerated in a basement furnace. Police later discovered piles of human bones, surgical tools, and even vats of acid. To this day, no one knows exactly how many lives were taken within the walls of that castle. Holmes himself confessed to 27 murders, but some historians believe the number could be as high as 200. Holmes was eventually caught not for murder, but for insurance fraud. Yet once investigators uncovered the horrors of the murder castle, the truth came spilling out. He was executed in 1896, but his legacy as America's first serial killer lived on. The story of H.H. Holmes chills us because of the creativity of his evil. He didn't just kill, he engineered a building designed for murder. A castle of nightmares. And even more unsettling, many of the victims' identities remain unknown. Forgotten by time. Lost to the castle forever. Ted Bundy, the Charmer. Fast forward to the 1970s. A new kind of killer was emerging. He didn't hide in the shadows. He didn't wear a mask. He looked normal. He was handsome, intelligent, even charming. His name was Theodore Robert Bundy, known to the world simply as Ted Bundy. Bundy shattered society's idea of what a killer should look like. He wasn't a monster on the outside, he was a law student, politically active, even admired by those who knew him. But behind the smile was a predator who preyed on young women across multiple states. His method was as clever as it was cruel. Bundy would fake an injury wearing a sling or a cast. He would ask women to help him carry books or load something into his car. And when they got close enough, the trap snapped shut. He would strike them, abduct them, and take them to secluded locations where he committed unspeakable acts before killing them. Bundy confessed to killing more than 30 women, but experts believe the number could be far higher. What terrified people most wasn't just his crimes, but the way he blended into everyday life. He had girlfriends. He worked in politics. He even volunteered at a suicide hotline, where he saved lives by talking people out of ending their own. And all the while, he was killing. His story took an even stranger turn when he escaped police custody, not once, but twice. During his second escape, he fled to Florida, where his final rampage ended with a horrific attack at Florida State University's Chi Omega sorority house. 2 young women were murdered, and several others were brutally beaten. When Bundy was finally caught, his trial became a media sensation. Cameras captured his confident smiles, his flirtations with reporters, even his marriage proposal in the courtroom. Some women in the audience were so obsessed with him that they attended the trial just to watch. In January 1989, Ted Bundy was executed in the electric chair. Crowds outside the prison cheered, holding signs that read, "Burn, Bundy, burn." But his story lives on. Bundy reminds us of something terrifying, that evil doesn't always come with scars, blood, or a mask. Sometimes, it comes with a smile. Sometimes the killer looks exactly like the kind of person you trust. So, you've heard of some of the world's greatest murderers, but we're not finished, there's more. From a cannibal to a killer clown. Please subscribe and stay tuned in for the next episode. Thank you.